Checkdown, Brandon Joseph. I'm Nathan McCreary, and so happy to have you here. We are live on YouTube. I said Facebook, Brandon, the first time we did this stupid thing, and I was like, yeah, we're live on Facebook. We're not live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube, and fired up to have you back, Brandon. I know you've been busy with daddy duties. Just give us a life update, and how are you doing? You got a chance to check out some football, hopefully, this weekend.
Yeah, a little bit.
Is your mic on? Let me see if I got you muted. I got you coming in here. Oh, you know what? I had your pot down. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's fine. What week are we? Week 0, 1, 2, 2. Week 2 of the college football season was really good. A lot of fun games to be able to take in across the FBS and the FCS landscape. So it's really nice to be able to watch as many games as possible now.
And we're going to be interviewing the Long Island head coach, Ron Cooper. Should be joining us here shortly. Don't know a whole lot about this Long Island team. I know they're the Sharks. Some of my two favorite colors are that light blue and that yellow. Very, very good look. Southern has this very similar thing. We're going to be talking to him. He had picked up a big FCS win. But, Brandon, you don't mind? Well, first of all, I'm wearing my Tampa Bay Buccaneers stuff because I got a chance to go down to the Bucs game here in Atlanta and watch them take a W from the Atlanta Falcons. That was a big deal. Hey, there's my dog going off. I heard your babies in the background earlier. My dog's going off. But anyway, so listen, let's go ahead and get into, by the way, Coach Cooper coached with the Buccaneers, the defensive backs. Maybe we'll get a chance to talk to him shortly. We'll see. When he pops in, we'll go ahead and jump into the show as far as the interview portion. But let's go ahead and get to our recap for the FCS season in week 2. And the first game we're going to start out with is Idaho and St. Thomas. This was a game that we were, pretty looking forward to in the back and forth battle in the Kibbe Dome. Idaho earned its first win under head coach Thomas Ford with a 37-30 victory over St. Thomas. Quarterback Joshua Woods accounted for 3 touchdowns, including a career-long 57-yard run. And while the Vandal defense came up with key stops to preserve the win, the Tommies capitalized on turnovers and special teams miscues to stay within striking distance, but Idaho had a late score to bring this one, or take this one out of arm's reach. Brandon, the Tommies, we got a chance to talk to Coach Glenn Caruso earlier this week. They were fired up about their win. This Tommies team's a very, very good program. This is a huge task going into the Kibbe Dome on the road, a ranked Idaho. It proved to be a little bit too much. Maybe the depth there for Idaho was the difference, but a good showing for the Tommies, big win for Idaho.
Yeah, we also have to remember they play Pioneer League football. They don't have scholarship. These kids are there because, for the most part, they want to play football, and they've been very good. And I mean, you guys covered the story when we talked about this. They got kicked out of Division III and then moved into the FCS. So they're not supposed to win these games. The win for them is they lost by 7 against an Idaho program that's supposed to be really good and a playoff caliber team. The quarterback from Idaho played as you would expect for them to have to win these games. It's just, again, they had to do it against a Pioneer League team. So I don't know if you're Thomas Ford, feel a little bit confident as, a game's a game, and that's a quality opponent that could potentially be a playoff team. They should have been in the playoffs, twice during the reclassification, but they were not eligible due to reclassifying. So, I mean, St. Thomas is a potential playoff team, and I don't think, necessarily anything has changed with that. So for Joshua Wood, the quarterback for Idaho, he played really well. The 3 touchdowns through the air, 1 on the ground. But you have to worry over the course of a full season, knowing that they're going to go into that conference and play really tough teams later in the year. Are they going to be able to live and die by their quarterback having to do it all, having to lead the team in rushing and passing week in, week out when you get into Big Sky Conference play?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, we're going to turn our focus to our guest as Coach Ron Cooper is joining us. Coach, it's so great to see you. I hope you can see us, and we got you 5x5 here on the FCS Checkdown. Coach, first of all, congratulations on the big win. I was just telling Brandon, we don't know a whole lot about Long Island University. It's not a program we've got a chance to love on a little bit so far this season, but or previous seasons, but. Talk about your program, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Well, appreciate you having me on. We're a FCS school in Brookville, New York, and on Long Island.
Yeah.
It's a private school, but it's two campuses. There's one in Brooklyn. There's one about 22 miles away, which we're on, which is LIU Post, and it's a great environment, great school to get education. We just moved up from Division II about 5 years ago. This is my fourth season here, so we've had to increase things and make things better, but things are coming along pretty good.
Hired in January of 2022, Coach, you bring a wealth of experience to a program like Long Island University with coaching positions at Eastern Michigan, and you coached with Saban, and I'm looking at the list, Steve Spurrier and Lou Holtz and Barry Alvarez. You bring and Tampa Bay Buccaneers, by the way. I'm a huge Bucs fan. A season with them as well. Talk about your first of all, let's talk about how you got into football. Do you love football? Were you a coach's child? Where'd you play? Just a little bit about your history.
Well, I'm from Huntsville, Alabama. I played at Jacksonville State University, and right after I graduated from college, I knew I wanted to coach college football. I had a choice to go be a high school coach and teacher. I was in education, but I decided to go be a graduate assistant. And at that time, young coach Mac Brown, who became the head coach of North Carolina and Texas,
Wow.
was the young head coach at Appalachian State, and he gave me a graduate assistant job. And I went and worked for him at App State. And from there, I met a man that went to the University of Minnesota. A coach went to the University of Minnesota, John Palermo, and he was working for Lou Holtz. So
Wow.
they offered me a graduate assistant job there, and that's where it all started. I went to couple of small schools, Austin P, Murray State, and then I made it to UNLV, East Carolina, and was assistant at Notre Dame. And that's when I got my first head coaching job. I was Lou Holtz's assistant head coach and became a head coach at Eastern Michigan, and then Louisville, and then Alabama A&M, and got back into it with Big Ten play at Wisconsin. And after Wisconsin, when I started the SEC swing with Mississippi State, South Carolina, and LSU, and Texas A&M, and Arkansas, and then Alabama.
Coach, that's fantastic. Me and Brandon I'm based out of Atlanta. Brandon's still trying to get back to Atlanta from a stint in North Carolina. So we're very familiar with Jacksonville State's program. We were around the Kennesaw State program as its inception, and we had some good matchups there against the Gamecocks and some playoff stuff. Now, of course, both are in the FBS. Brandon, I'm sorry, I'll let you have the floor here with Coach Coop.
Yeah, well, my first question is, what was the process like to go to LIU, as you mentioned? And I'm somebody that was born in Brooklyn, New York, so I'm very familiar with the LIU Brooklyn campus. And then, the post campus was, something that was a little bit further away. And LIU basketball on the Brooklyn campus has made it into the first four a couple of times. There, coming out of the NEC, what intrigued you about taking the job there at LIU and the growth of that program? And you left a job at Alabama as an analyst, and analysts have it pretty good at the FBS level. So what was intriguing to you about getting back on the sideline and going to LIU?
Bill Martineau, who was athletic director at that time, I actually helped him with his first job. He was a grad assistant for us at Austin P. And then we worked together again. He was a strength coach at Notre Dame when I was assistant head coach there for Lou Holtz. And I'd gone through it and been coaching. And I was actually at Alabama when it came up. And Bill called me, and I talked to, a couple of the administrators, the president. And I came up and looked at it. I talked to Coach Saban at the time, and Coach Saban said there's nothing wrong with looking. When I first came up and looked at it, I thought it was something that would be interesting, but I didn't accept it right away. I wanted to go through that season at Alabama. I felt like things were sort of not at the end, but when I talked to Coach Saban, he said, well, there's nothing wrong with doing it again if you'd like. There's nothing wrong with taking a shot at it and doing it. So I sensed something then where, we were close. We played Cincinnati in the first round of the playoffs, and we played Georgia in the finals, and we lost that game. And we talked, and I just decided it was the right move for me at the time, with just trying to let's be a head coach again. Let's finish up a career at a smaller institution that's on the rise, that wants to do something special. I'm in charge again, so I can sort of do it my way rather than sitting in somebody else's meeting. So it's been fun doing it again.
Coach, when I say the names like Patrick Peterson, Morris Claiborne, Tyrann Mathieu, Robert Mathis, that kind of that lineage of players, obviously you've seen the best of the best. Then you get a chance to go to an FCS school, LIU, private school. You still have these amazing athletes who have to put in so much hard work. What do you take from those SEC type programs, and then you look at LIU and go, okay, the talent pool isn't that big, but there's still excellent talent there. And I imagine those kind of names fire up those players on your teams and go, he recognizes talents and he can develop talent.
Yeah, that's I was very blessed to coach a group of guys. There's a lot more really than that. Those names are the most popular names recently, but
Sure.
I can think back to probably about 50 draft picks, to be truthful with you, that I've had over the years since the early 90s when I was at Notre Dame. And I look at it and say that there's still 18 to 22-year-old student athletes. They're still young football players. They still want to be coached. They still want to be developed. They want to be trained. They want to be told what they need to hear, not just what they want to hear. And I feel very fortunate because I've gotten all out of this NLI deal now. That's changed college football. I'm dealing with a group of guys that love to play the game. Don't get me wrong now. I do sell some of the guys on if you have a chance
Sure.
and a better opportunity. I want you to take it. We lost probably 8 guys in the portal last year. They all, received benefits for going. So that's a plus. But I enjoy just coaching. The win we had the other night was just as fun as, when I was at LSU and we beat Alabama.
That's great. Well, let's take a look at that win here on the screen, Coach. It's a 28-23 win over Eastern Michigan. It's the school's first ever win against the FBS opponent. You had a very good quarterback, Ethan Greenwood and Lucas Stanzani, who both showed up for you. Just talk about a little bit about this team. 231 yards rushing, 248 passing, very balanced, lots of time of possession there, and then 11 for 17 on third downs. You have to be very proud of your team, Coach.
Yeah, we control the line of scrimmage up front on both sides, and both quarterbacks played exceptional. The biggest plus is that the time of possession, we held the ball 37, almost 38 minutes to their 22. And when you do that and don't turn it over, we didn't have a single turnover or a single penalty on offense. That's always a positive. And on defense, if you hold your opponents to 300, 310 yards a game, you're going to finish in the top 10 in the nation every year.
Brandon, what you got?
Coach, when, I saw Mickey Joseph give his press conference when Grambling was about to go to Ohio State, and he basically said, you know what, I'm going to be honest, we don't necessarily have a shot in this game. I don't know if Clint Dozell, necessarily, thought that, East Texas A&M was going to beat Florida State, but he learned quickly after the first 3 possessions that wasn't going to happen. But for you, at what point when you put on film, in the first part of my question is, did you realize, hey, we have a shot to win this game? And the second part of my question is, when you were on the field in the game, at what point during the game did you go, you know what, we have a legitimate shot to close this out?
Well, we played Florida the first game of the season, so we spent 2 weeks watching them on film, and which is the best of the best, And so we felt like we went into that game with just being able to hang in there and compete. And after watching their guys run around and try to cover them and get off blocks and them rushing us, as we looked at Eastern Michigan, we still saw the same caliber team, but not the same speed, not the same aggressiveness. But they're still a team that's FBS that can put 105 on scholarship, and they've got a beautiful facility. I was the head coach there at one time, so I know the job, and so I felt like we had a chance going into the game. When we took the ball and Ethan, the first series, second series, went down the field and broke one and scored. And we went 2 series on defense with 3 plays and out, with making them punt. I knew then that, the more we would get going on offense, the doubt would go in their head a little bit. And I think it just kept going. Probably the biggest play in the game for them was, they're backed up and they felt like they had to get a first down. It was 4th and 1, and they went for it on 4th down. We had a tackle for a loss, and the next play we score. So then it became a time of possession with us, with just, hey, let's hold on to the ball. Let's not let them score fast. And they ended up kicking onside, kicked us the last couple of minutes of the game, last minute of the game, and we got on and won the game.
Coach, you also had a couple awards in the NEC. Lucas Stanzani was named the Offensive Player of the Week. Defensively, Rafael Fasalino, I believe is how you pronounce it, was named the linebacker, was Defensive Player of the Week. He had 8 tackles, 5 solos, 1 pass breakup. What can you tell us a little bit about this team? You got homecoming coming up against Sacred Heart. This has to be a great momentum builder for this team and the fan base there for the Sharks.
Well, we're coming home at 1-1 with coming off probably the largest win, biggest win they've ever had at this university. And what we told the team, we meet Monday mornings and watch the film. What we told them was, hey, guys, we've now just put a bullseye on our chest for every other team that we play. Every other team is the same level that we are. We put a bullseye on our chest. They're going to look at us and say, this is a pretty good team, so we're going to get their first shot, their best shot, starting with Sacred Heart this weekend. So we've played them since I've been here. We've won, I think, 3 times, and I think they beat us once. But I feel real confident that our players have already forgotten about the game that we played against Eastern Michigan. After this morning's practice, I know that they're focused. They're set on the game plan. So we've got to continue to just build on what we played, how we played, but at the same time be able to look forward and say, hey, this is a new game. This is a new week. We got to start over. We're 0-0.
Sacred Heart coming off a tough loss to Lehigh, by the way. Coach, I'm a philosophy, I'm a leadership kind of student of leadership. Who would you say was someone that you really look up as a leader in your life and that taught you a lot, and maybe a leader on the field as well? And they obviously could be the same, but what is your leadership philosophy and where does it come from?
Well, I've been very fortunate to sit in a lot of staff meetings with several Hall of Fame coaches. As a young coach, 21 years old, right out of college, turning 22, I sat with young Mac Brown. At that time, I think he was 32. And I remember listening to Coach Brown, and I was like, wow, listen to what this man says. He's unbelievable. And again, at that time, he was a head coach at Appalachian State. Nobody really knew what he was go on to do, what he went on to do great things at Texas and North Carolina a couple of times. And then very fortunate right after that, to go to Minnesota. And I sat in with a guy, Lulu Holtz, and I was a GA there and got a chance to hear. And then I worked for some really good coaches on all levels. I credit a lot to Bill Lewis at East Carolina. And I can then think of my Mississippi State years. Jackie Sherrill's probably one of the best recruiters at Mississippi State that I'd ever seen. How he handled the players, how he was a player's coach, what he did, how he handled things, his temperament, how he loved recruiting. And then I worked for Steve Spurrier, who I learned a whole lot from. Basically, don't overwork. Exercise during the year. Family time was very important. We had family time every day. He wanted us to go to. He wanted us to go and work out every day at lunch and make sure that that we were in shape and not sitting in a room watching film every day. And then from there, I was Bear Alvarez. Hit him a couple of times. So Les Miles, we won big at LSU. Of course, I was with Summerlin at Alabama and got a chance to sit in a meeting my last year probably as an assistant ever with Nick Saban, who's one of the best.
Well, it sounds like you took a little bit from every place you've been, Coach. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I have. Yes, I have.
Coach, you kind of mentioned all the places that you've been, and they're all, college football's ingrained in a lot of those places. The whole idea of that. You come to Brooklyn, New York, you come to Long Island, And that's not necessarily the case. There's a lot of great athletes there, but some kids also are playing, high school football and baseball on top of a parking deck when you get into the city. It doesn't have that same culture of being ingrained. So how do you relay that and that passion to some of these kids that, football is something that, they're good at, and they may not love it the same way that you grew up loving it, or some of the other kids that you want to bring in, but that they can contribute to the team.
Definitely, there's really good football players around here. We have our camps every single summer. We probably 600 to 700 high school kids through our football camp. So I get a chance to see them, coach them. We've gone to different places. We even have one in Brooklyn on the campus there. We have one out east. We have several here. But I get a chance to see them. What happens here is they're more of a raw player. They may not be developed athletically. I've got a corner right now, Jalen Lewis, who's from the city. If Jalen Lewis had played football in the state of Florida and had played since he was in the fifth grade, he would be somewhere right now at Florida State, being ready to come out early in the draft. But he played basketball here his entire time and played a year of football, so it's taking him a little bit longer. But you find more of a raw athlete, but they're still good, hard-nosed players.
Coach, before we wrap, I'm going to give you one opportunity just to pitch LIU football. FCS fans, and we usually draw 600 to 800 viewers a week. We love FCS football. We were around FCS football. We don't really like what's going on with the landscape of college football because it's just kind of an earthquake. Seems like every other week. But if you're selling LIU football to the fan base, to just FCS fans as a whole, what are you telling about? What are you telling about your program?
Well, first of all, any student who comes to school here is going to get a good quality education. They're going to be around great faculty and staff members that love and care about them, that want to see them be successful. But at the same time, you're going to get coached here just like you're coached. Just like I coached them. I coached no different here than when I coached at Alabama or when I coached at LSU. They're going to get coached the same way. The coaches are going to get treated the same way. The coaches are going to have the same organization we've had. They're waiting on me for a staff meeting right now. We're going to work. We're going to prepare. We're going to do game plans. We're going to do scouting reports. There's no difference in the preparation that we have here than anywhere I've been.
Well, Coach, it's a real joy to see you guys pick up a big win against the FBS opponent. We always like to fear the FCS hashtag. We can use it. Congratulations. Best of luck next week in your homecoming. And thank you guys so much for the short notice and joining us here for our FCS CheckDown live feed.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys having me on.
All right, Coach. That is Ron Cooper, the head coach for Long Island University, the Sharks, with a big win against Eastern Michigan. Brandon, I love the fact that, he doesn't have one leadership philosophy he's drawn from. He's drawn from all of them, and what names he can drop. Gosh, I got chills thinking about it, man. That guy's got a great resume, and seems like he got a great demeanor for a head coach.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to be around, guys like Nick Saban, guys like Kevin Sumlin, guys that he has worked with, and they are really not just smart football coaches, but really smart in how they handle and they talk to people and they treat people. And you can tell that coach has gotten all that from them as well, and sprinkled in his own little flavor. He's been around, been able to take a lot from a different bunches of people.
Yeah.
That's important too, and he's going into a non-traditional football environment, and he kind of touched on that. I grew up in that environment as well, and to his point, there's not a lot of rec league football. It's not a lot of Pop Warner and youth league football, but there is talent there. You do have guys that can run 4.3 40. You do have guys with cannons for an arm. It's just those guys take part in track, or they take part in baseball and things like that. So he has the big task of not just finding the players, but development is just as important as finding the players. And if there's anybody that is known for having the talent in that area, guess what? James Franklin is up there trying to get him to go to Penn State. Yeah. Shiano at Rutgers is over there as well. So he's got to find the diamond in the rough more times than not, and they're doing a great job. And we kind of joked about, and we've talked about this in the past, like we're eventually going to see some sort of, homogenization between some version of the FBS and the FCS. I think you saw there's not that big of a talent divide between the MAC and then the NEC and some of these other FCS conferences, and that is going to be more of the norm of, directional Michigan schools playing FCS schools because they'll be at the same level soon.
Yeah, and it was interesting that he picks up the first FBS win against the team he was the head coach for. Great storyline. Let me do some admin stuff. What is your time frame here? I know you got babies and mama. Are you okay for another 10 minutes or so?
Yeah, we got some time.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and hit a couple more games, and then we're going to take a break at 8 o'clock because at 8:30 we're going to come back and we're going to have Joel Taylor, the head coach for West Georgia, joining us. We'll go through a couple more games. By the way, Coach Deron Jackson had a family emergency. Our thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family, and just prayers out to him. So, but let's go ahead and get in back to the FCS, the games this weekend, and it was a ranked matchup between SFA and ACU. Abilene Christian protected its home turf with a 28-20 win over number 25 Stephen F. Austin at Wildcat Stadium. The ACU defense forced 3 turnovers, converted them into 14 points, highlighted by a fumble recovery touchdown by Kagan Roach. Running back Jordan Vaughn paced the offense with 2 scores on the ground, while Stone Earl, the quarterback there, threw for 239 yards, added a rushing touchdown as well. So this is a big, big win for Abilene Christian. We kind of knew, Brandon, that they were going to be a team that is really hard, tough to deal with. SFA, of course, jumps to the Southland. It's no longer a conference opponent, but they are right there in the same state. So huge win for Keith Patterson and Abilene Christian.
Yeah, I mean, Abilene Christian, they do a very good job of winning whatever way they have to. I would say for Abilene Christian, I don't want to say it's more of an expected victory or it's more about their victory. I think for Stephen F. Austin, this is a huge loss for them. I think Abilene Christian is always that team that is playoff cusp, and depending on what the committee looks at and the failures of the polls and things like that. But for Stephen F. Austin, they don't win these important games as of late, and it's been that way for a little bit. They have trouble winning these very important games, and this comes back to bite them. This will come back to affect them in some way, shape, or form. I know it's not a conference game anymore, but if they don't win their conference and they're a French team, committees go to these types of games and go, well, they have a history also of not winning these games. The Lumberjacks are down bad with this one.
Yeah. And we love Coach Carthel. We like what he's doing there, but obviously you got to put the pieces together. Another head coach that we really like, and he's putting the pieces together, is Pete Rossimondo, the head coach for Lamar. This is a huge win. Lamar pulled off the biggest win in program history, knocking off the number 4 South Dakota Coyotes 20-13 at home. The Cardinals defense forced 3 turnovers, including a goal line fumble recovery, and allowed us 3 points in the second half. Quarterback Robert Coleman provided a rushing score, while Joshua Robinson added the game-winning touchdown in the fourth quarter to secure Lamar's first top 5 victory. What a job there that Pete Rossimondo is doing for Lamar. Another huge win. And South Dakota has been that team that, top 10 and then a big loss or an unexpected loss. And they've done it again here, and I've seen them drop 10 to 14 points. And you know what? Credit Lamar. This is a top 4 win for them. Their program, I picked them to beat North Texas to start the season. I think Lamar is going to be a good football program. Do not sleep on Pete Rossimondo, what he's doing there. And their quarterback there, Robert Coleman's doing some big things as well. So Lamar, big win over South Dakota. You can't lose those games if you're the Coyotes and want to be progressing and be up there with Big Brother.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They're habitually in that region. They're habitually, I would say, at the bottom or slightly above, depending on how you want to lump them in with North Dakota, the Fighting Hawks.
Right.
But by far, and I throw the Dakota schools and the Montana schools in that main mix there. They're not on that same level. They're not on that tier. They've been ahead of North Dakota for a while, but there is an obvious divide. Even when South Dakota is kind of knocking at the door, they're still a little rung on the ladder below everybody else. But for Lamar in this, you come into the Southland early in the season, the predictions, you had Incarnate Word at the top. You had Stephen F. Austin at the top. You had McNeese at the top. Well, after the first couple of weeks of the season, it's Lamar, it's Nichols. This has the opportunity to potentially flip a lot on its lid early in the season. Now, they can all get into conference play and they could all, cream rise to the top as, we kind of expect or we think will happen. But early on in the season, 3 weeks in to the college football season, this is a interesting thing to keep track of. But Lamar's playing really good football, and you could tell almost akin to that college basketball team that just has a bunch of people come back, and can make a run. That's kind of like where Lamar is now. They got a bunch of guys who are comfortable in the system. They have a coach that's comfortable in his surroundings, and they're just building and building and building. And this could have the makings of being something quasi-magical for them.
Yeah, I believe so. I think they were on the cusp, and they put together what they were 4 years ago, a shambles, and really couldn't put any points on the board. Now they're a team that's going to be, you're going to have to take seriously there in the Southland. All right, up next, we got Towson and Morgan State. Towson claimed the battle for the Greater Baltimore with a dramatic 27-22 victory over Morgan State. Quarterback Andrew Endorf found John Dunmore for the game-winning 18-yard touchdown with 28 seconds left, capping a clutch drive. Lucas Londano, how about that, Brandon? Lucas Londano added a 96-yard kickoff return for a touchdown, while Camarion Battles rushed for another score. Morgan State's Jason Collins ran for 134 yards and 2 touchdowns in the loss. I've got a little logo up here in the Morgan State, because this is my what the heck? How does Morgan State lose this ball game? They outrush, they outpass. Total yards. They had the ball longer. They turned the ball over 3 times with a pick 6. That's bad, but their third down conversion was better. How the heck does Morgan State lose this game? I have no idea, Brandon, but they did lose it, and that's a big win for Towson over Morgan State. That is the Battle of Baltimore, and Towson's been a program that's one of those teams you just don't want to play. They are, man, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. If you get Dr. Jekyll, you're in trouble.
Yeah, and that's the thing for Towson. Should they have handled this game better? Probably. They should have, I would think, given where Morgan State is, and where Towson is in the landscape. And Towson is a team that's always playing for the playoffs. Morgan State, not so much. I mean, it's a struggle in the MEAC sometimes for them. It should not have been this close from Towson's perspective. Now, you win the game, thankfully, if you're Towson, for 3 turnovers. And if you're Morgan State, that is the prime example when you look at that stat line of why turnovers kill, why coaches always say, throw the ball away, and you're helping us rather than throw a ball in a tight window that gets intercepted or turned to a pick 6. Or protect the football, protect the rock, and don't be, I've heard coaches say, loose with the church's money. That's the type of stuff that happens. You take a chance to win a football game, and you legitimately throw it away.
Yeah, and you can't do that. You can't do that. All right. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Stats don't lie. All right, up next, we're going to turn our focus to Richmond and Wofford. It was Richmond earned its first win of the season behind a strong defensive performance, topping Wofford 14-10 in a weather-delayed contest. Quarterback Kyle Wickersham accounted for both Spider touchdowns, including the game-winner 10-yard run in the fourth quarter. The defense recorded 4 sacks and held Wofford to just 158 yards total, helping Coach Russ Huseman tie for the second most wins in program history. The Spiders needed this one, Brandon. Not so much a surprise, but it was a close game and a weather-delayed game, and we've been a part of those. Those are always tricky, but a win for Richmond now in the Patriot League. And so, you take on Wofford, a team that's much improved. You expect to beat them. They did. Not a blowout, but it was a big pickup and a win for the Richmond Spider program.
Yeah, I mean, styles make fights. I mean, that's what it boils down to. None of this will be put on the highlight film of this is if you had to put in a time capsule of this is football or this is even FCS football, this game ain't going in there.
Yeah.
I mean, both these quarterbacks necessarily didn't light up the world with their arms. For Wofford, I mean, 4.5 yards passing, under 50%, not great when you have to, throw the ball, especially late in the game, to try to catch up or, try to come back and win the game. I know they were down, 14-10 towards the end. You still need to complete the ball a little bit better, but that is to boot the whole problem of you can't run the ball either. Your leading rusher had 45 yards in the game, and as a team, you had 47. Now that's with quarterback sacks taking the negative in there. You still need to be able to throw the ball, have the threat of throwing the ball if you're Wofford. Most of it's been by design recently for Wofford, but the necessity in today's age of college football, you need to be able to throw the ball and throw the ball well when needed. Conversely, for Richmond, Wickersham, great job. 20 of 29 passing, but 153 yards. That's not going to win you a lot of games with that stat line at the FCS level even. And also running the ball for them, 119. That is great, but it came on the heels of your quarterback running the football. That's not the recipe, again, to go back to Idaho, to win football games, especially late in the season, to have your quarterback be your leading rusher and have to do it with his arm.
Yeah, you got to need some help. Well, a guy that could throw it and run it was Michael Vick. Well, he picked up his first victory as the head coach of Norfolk State University, 34-31 over Virginia State. This is an overtime win. Norfolk State rallied from a 13-point deficit to outlast Virginia State in overtime, giving Michael Vick his first career win. Quarterback Otto Coons threw 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns, while Jalen Loudermilk added a late 33-yard rushing score to force overtime. Evan Helfrich delivered the game winner with a 29-yard field goal after the Virginia State Spartans defense produced the Norfolk State Spartan defense provided a key stop. And you see Virginia State did have a scoop and score for a touchdown, but 331 passing yards, way too much to give up for an FCS opponent facing a lower level tier. 4 for 14 on third downs, 29 minutes on the time of possession there. And although Michael Vick, I'm sure, is very happy to get the monkey off his back, this victory over a Virginia State program is probably one you should pick up if you're Norfolk State. But congratulations, not going to minimize it. Congratulations to Michael Vick. Big win for him. Great win for the program. They're off to a 1-1 start.
Like I said a couple weeks ago, I mean, he didn't get this job because Norfolk State was a playoff contender, going to win conference championships. He got the job because, and with all due respect to the Spartan program, it was in shambles. I mean, and it's not great. They don't have a lot of talent there right now. No disrespect to the guys suiting up, but this is the type of result that you're not overly shocked by. Mm-hmm. What is troubling, I think, for the Spartan program is, and maybe they've solved it now with Otto Coons at quarterback. Israel Carter has not fit in well at the quarterback position. He's really gifted, really talented. I don't think he's going to be the guy moving forward for the Spartans. And they run the ball pretty well. They have a lot of different guys that can run the ball pretty well. If they can win the battle in the trenches, they can keep doing that. I mean, we've seen North Dakota State, South Dakota State, win games by running the ball a lot. We've seen Georgia win football games by running the ball a lot. That's the old school SEC mantra. But I don't think they have a line that can hold up against top tier opponents, because they have a line that can slightly dominate, Virginia State, but defensively, they got to figure something out. Whatever they go into, whatever they had defensively, burn it and burn the ashes. Bury them, burn them, throw them in the river. I mean, this is
the Bay, Chesapeake Bay.
For 2 weeks in a row, it has been really bad defensively for the Spartans. And I mean, Michael Vick is an NFL quarterback who has prepared against NFL defenses. He should be able to look at a game plan. And these are the things that I'm talking about with coaching and him having to learn about quickly pulling the ripcord on whatever philosophy they have and going to plan B. Mm-hmm. I've heard many defensive coordinators go in there and say, hey, we've had a game plan. And at a point, we've tore it up and just said, see ball, get ball. I don't know if they have the guys to do that, but the defensive scheming for the Spartans is not very good. And I think that's got to be change number one for them moving forward, or else they may be looking at the only win they have this year.
Yeah, I don't disagree. You got to perform better. But sometimes a win can be that snowball. Hopefully that's the case for Norfolk State and Michael Vick. All right, up next, it was a win for William and Mary just by a hair. William and Mary rallied from a 10-point halftime deficit to edge Maine 28-27 in a rain-soaked conference opener. Quarterback Tyler Hughes threw 2 touchdown passes and rushed for 73 yards, while Rashad Raymond scored the game-winning touchdown with 3 minutes and 11 seconds left. Linebacker Jalen Jones sealed the win with an interception on Maine's final drive as the Tribe opened up CAA play with a thriller. This is a big win for the Tribe. William and Mary, another team that seems like they find a way to lose games. If you look at the statistics, 253 yards of total offense, not going to knock you over. You lost the time of possession battle. You won the turnover battle, but still 4 for 11, I think, is probably an area that you want to improve if you're William and Mary or Maine, who's 5 for 15, and they only had 97 yards passing. So both these teams, I don't think you're expecting a whole lot out of the Maine, but William and Mary's been a perennial winner there in the CAA, a very different CAA from what it was a couple years ago, with now Delaware gone and Richmond gone. But, 1-point win over Maine, again, not pretty, but you take an ugly W over an ugly L any day.
Yeah, and for Maine, I think they're going to rule 2 possessions, down inside the 15-yard line, and they end up having to kick field goals. That's your difference right there. If you can win in that short yardage, get in the end zone, that's a totally different ball game. That's kind of what separates those good teams from being an okay team or a pedestrian team. And the fact that those are no doubts that makes a good team an elite team. For William and Mary, they're an okay team. I think given what they've lost in the CAA as a conference, they'll be up there. They'll be second and third, even if they're not playing good football. I think Villanova probably will be that top line team perennially, year in, year out, up there. But for William and Mary, for me, it's not a question of, will they be a playoff team on the bubble or in or around the playoffs or in the conversation. It's the point of, you play these games against a team like Maine that you probably should have handled by multiple scores.
Yeah.
And if you go back to that graphic, another game in which, you get whooped upon the head, the neck, and the body, theoretically, in the stat line there, pass and rushing, time of possession, and things like that. Yeah, granted, you got a turnover, which probably, factored into it being a big difference in the ball game, but that's not a recipe to win big games. And I think I just have to lower my expectation of saying, hey, we're not talking about, a semifinal team here in William and Mary. We're talking about a team that potentially, if the CAA gets 2, they can be the second team out of there.
Yeah, and you're not going to win many games if you're one-dimensional, unless you're the Bryant Bulldogs playing UMass. 399 total yards, only 81 rushing, 318 through the air. Bryant stunned UMass with that 27-26 road win, marking the Bulldogs' first ever win over an FBS opponent. Sophomore quarterback Brennan Meyer threw for 318 yards and 3 touchdowns, a 72-yard strike to Zaheem Kollick. Bryce Soley drilled the game-winning 25-yard field goal as time expired to complete the comeback, capped the second-half rally from a 10-point deficit. Bryant, the Dookie Dogs, I don't know what's up with the color of their mascot, but it is not pleasant in my opinion. But you find a way to win. Only 81 yards rushing. You have 2 turnovers. One was a pick 6 by UMass, and 4 for 14 on third down conversions. I think this probably says more about UMass than it does Bryant, maybe. But hey, a good performance there by their quarterback, Brendan Meyer. Very happy for him. Over 300 yards passing is not easy to do against an FBS defense, but UMass, oh my God. FCS win over an FBS opponent.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to ask Coach Cooper, how did they get the check? Did they hand it to him post-game when they beat Eastern Michigan? The same goes for Bryant. Like, did you get the check post-game? But listen, UMass was homeless up until last year.
Yeah.
They got kicked out. They were forced to be an independent, and the MAC threw them a lifeline. So this isn't necessarily, hey, world beaters, but you got to say it's an FBS victory if you're Bryant. But to my point, I mean, give it time. This will be a victory that the committee will consider of equal stature and standing.
This will be a Division I double A versus double A
And
minor, whatever. Whatever it's going to be.
yeah, and to the point of, if you're the MAC and you have to go in front of this Division I committee that is controlled by the SEC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the ACC, and you go in there and you put this on the table and say, hey, we still deserve to be at the upper ball, what do you think is going to happen to you? They're going to laugh at you. They already don't like you. They already don't think you belong and think that you're vulturing their TV money. In the grand scheme of things, even though you get pennies on the dollar, the Power Four believes the conference, the MAC, could go away tomorrow and actually raise the stake or the standing of FBS football. This doesn't help your case if you're the MAC.
Yeah. You know what? And honestly, well, I was gonna say there's probably better FCS programs right now than Eastern Michigan and UMass that you might.
North Dakota State would win the MAC if they played in the MAC right now.
I agree.
Maybe
100%.
they'd have faced some competition from Toledo, because Toledo is actually a pretty good team, has a lot of guys coming back. Ohio can get up there and beat somebody, but you can't tell me, if I'm Vegas setting a line and North Dakota State had to play either one of those schools for the MAC championship, that it wouldn't be any more than 2.5 points.
Yeah, I agree. All right, we'll start it. Hashtag NDSU to the MAC.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
why would they bring themselves to go do that?
I know, exactly.
They'd take a pay cut.
Exactly. Moving on, we have Northern Arizona built a 31-10 halftime lead and held off a late rally to defeat Utah Tech, who's becoming a bit of a pest here in the FCS. It was a home opener for NAU. Seth Cromwell rushed for 2 touchdowns, while quarterback Ty Pennington accounted for 2 more scores. Jalen Wellesley's 2 interceptions, including a late game sealer, highlighted a strong defensive effort to extend NAU's Sky Dome winning streak to 8 games. Take a look at the numbers here. 3 turnovers gained by the Jacks, 7 for 14. That's 50%, I do believe, if I can do my math correctly. 7 for 14 on third downs, almost 400 yards of offense, but it was the Utah Tech, again, putting together a very tough competition for their opponent, not being able to pull it out. They almost knocked off UC Davis. Here, almost knocked off Northern Arizona. That seems like that program's going in the right direction, but it is a big win for the ranked opponent, Northern Arizona. High expectations for that program, and now an 8-game win streak there at the Sky Dome, which is becoming a very difficult place to play.
Yeah, to the Utah Tech angle, better quarterback play, you win the game. Hands down. 3 interceptions there. You were 15 to 31 passing as a team. That is under 50%. Quick math there. I'm not a mathematician, but I know for a fact that is under 50%, 15 to 31, 136 yards through the air. That's a problem. And that's why you're not winning these games if you're Utah Tech.
Let's turn our focus to a game that I think probably shocked some and is going to cost the head coach his job. It is the Citadel and Samford, 40-13. Brandon, take a look at the turnovers gained for Citadel. 2 scoop and scores, 5 turnovers. It appears this Samford program. Now, listen, they put up 452 yards of total offense. They had the ball for 30 minutes, but 90 yards rushing. It just seems like Chris Hatcher, and it's nothing personal against Chris Hatcher, it seems like he has lost his way. This Samford team and this program has lost its way. This is a very, very unusual loss. Listen, the Citadel beat Georgia Tech a couple years ago. You know you're always going to get a tough game, but a 40-13 loss at home for Samford, that is 5 turnovers, Brandon. That's unacceptable. You can't do that.
Yeah, especially when your coach is the offensive-minded head coach and Chris Hatcher. Somebody's got to answer for it. Now, more times than not, it is the offensive coordinator, whether they're the guy who had a say in the matter or not. I've seen and heard of offensive coordinators being called into an office and getting fired because, I got to make a change. And, I know I'm the head coach and I'm the offensive guy and I put in the play, the installation, I do the play calling, I come up with the offensive philosophy and it's not working, but you got to get fired for it. That may be Chris Hatcher's saving grace. As he may have a scapegoat. His offensive coordinator has been there for 3 or 4 years at this point, so you can kind of, feel the heat, scapegoat. But yeah, to your point, this is not the same Stanford team a couple of years ago.
Right.
4 or 5 years ago. This is not that same team. People used to fear going to Homewood to play Stanford.
Yep.
Now they don't. Now they look forward to it. And even on your not so great of nights, you feel you can get a possession or two. This is not a team that strikes fear in anybody offensively.
One thing that I noticed and that just screams desperation, is one of the scoop and scores was on a faked field goal attempt by Samford. You are okay. So I know the head coach is got input on somewhat trick plays. You're in desperation mode. You're going for fake field goals. You're putting up a bunch of yards through the air, but not scoring any points. Fake field goals turns into a scoop and score. What? It just doesn't. It's not right. It just shows it's time to turn the page. Coach Hatcher may go be an offensive coordinator somewhere at a very big school and be very successful. It's time to turn the page if Samford wants to get back to what they were. And again, it's nothing personal, but Samford, the FCS has got to have teams in the South that are competitive. Jacksonville State's gone. Kennesaw State's gone. Mercer's gone. They're still being ranked in the top 25 somehow. They didn't even have. They had a bye, but they lost anyway. Samford is that type of program with great stadium, great history, great lineage that could be that team. They're not right now, and I think it has a lot to do with that head coach.
Yeah, to your point with that, it is. The South still has the best football talent, and you send the most guys. FBS, good, cool. That next level, those FCS kids still need to be in the South, and they're not. They're going different places. They're going out west. They find their way to the Big Sky, the Missouri Football Conference. The talent does fan out, and it's really interesting that you see teams like Kennesaw, Jacksonville State, Georgia State, Georgia Southern, James Madison, Old Dominion. I can continue on. They get even the slightest bit of success at the FCS level, and then they're viable FBS programs because of the South and the media markets they're in. But you don't have these other Chattanooga's in there also. You don't have Mercer. You don't have Samford. It'd be interesting to see West Georgia what they can do over time, being relatively close to the Metro Atlanta area. Filling those voids, getting those next tier of guys to stay more local. And I think if you have the right philosophy, and I think that's the trouble there with some of these schools is they don't have that right philosophy of saying, hey, I know you want to be at Georgia, Georgia Tech, Bama, Auburn, all these places. It's okay to come here as a stopping point, play good football, get good tape, and then go on. Now, how does that change with the NIL and the master settlement agreement? I don't know. Maybe these kids are more likely to go to potentially a CUSA school like Kennesaw, get paid a little bit, get some tape, and then move on. But the talent is still there, and it's amazing how Chris Hatcher and everybody at Mercer can't put it together. Let's use Drew Cronick as an example. It didn't work. Somehow he's revolutionized Navy's offense. As an OC. It's amazing. Right. And I said it last year, it's a fail forward. He's failed forward into an OC job and he's thrived at it. It's amazing how these guys just can't put together from a head coaching standpoint in the Southeast when the talent, the second level of talent in the Southeast is still better than almost anywhere else.
Yep.
First level, Midwest, Pacific Northwest. The second level of the Southeast is still better than those first levels.
Yep, absolutely. Well, we're going to wrap it up there. We have a second episode, second half of this show coming up at 8:30, where Joel Taylor, the head coach of West Georgia, will join us. Brandon, thank you so much. Prayers go out to Coach Ron and his family, and thank you so much for Coach Ron Cooper, who joined us from Long Island. Brandon, if you're able to come back, great. If not, I know you got babies to put to sleep, but thank you so much for your time tonight. Any final words?
Remember, I don't hate you. I just hate your school.
That is Brandon Joseph. I'm Nathan McCreary. This is the FCS Checkdown. We'll see you at 8:30. We got a big interview coming up with West Georgia's head coach, Joel Taylor. Join us at 8:30 here on the FCS Checkdown.